Hi guys, welcome to another episode of T's Foam and Terrain. And this is a bit of an unusual one in the sense that I was tweeting about prepping some movement trays and some figures for painting just the other day, and one of the people who follow me on Twitter just left me a really nice little message, which was, great picture, would make an interesting video, hint hint. So I thought, actually, maybe it would. For some people, and maybe this is a video for Bolt Action Basics, I don't know. I don't think movement trays are used a whole lot in Bolt Action by many people. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are people out there that use movement trays. But I've come across them in the last year or so because of the variety now available. I think probably, many years ago, the sort of movement trays were the GW ones, that sort of flat tray with sort of an edge around it, and you put your figures, which were all on squares, square bases, just in, and they all kind of fitted in. And some people like that, some people didn't. For historicals, it didn't always appeal to me. But there have been companies now out there that are making movement trays, and actually I think they're quite useful. You can get skirmish ones, you can get ones with different numbers of holes, so that you can have a small unit of skirmishers. You could actually have a square base with circular holes, so that you can put your figures in. Particularly good for Napoleonics, because you can turn all the figures so that they're in line, or you can turn them so they're in march column, and it's really useful. Particularly, I think, for those sort of rank and file games, but they're also quite useful for some of the more skirmish based games. And I decided I was going to pick some up for my 20mm Russians. Now, the size of figure doesn't make a difference, it's more about the base. And I can highly recommend checking out a company called War Bases. And they're based up in Scotland. They're really good. It's all laser cut MDF bases. They do standard bases as well as movement trays, and they also do terrain. So well worth checking out. But I thought I'd pick some up. Now, I've kind of got into the habit now of using pennies, as in coins, to base my figures on. And War Bases do movement trays which have the holes cut out for penny-sized bases. Now, you can get, I think, circular bases from them that are penny-sized, or you can in fact get pennies themselves, which are cheaper than actually MDF bases, and you can mount them on there and stick them on there and then put them in these movement trays. So basically it's an MDF. I wish I hadn't sprayed them all up before I did this video, but I have, unfortunately, so I can't show you them right at the basic step. But basically it's MDF. Ignore the bottle top, that doesn't come with it, that's for my own purposes. But it's MDF, and it's got circles cut out of it, and you can get them in all sorts of shapes and sizes. This one's an 8. This one here is a 6. I've got some here that I did earlier which have 3 bases, and if I take the figures out, actually that might help. 3, and I've also got one here that's a 2. And I think, to be fair, War Bases, if you speak to them, they may well do whatever you need, because they're that good a company. They really are good, and these cost next to nothing. They're really, really good. So I thought, let's do a quick video to explain, firstly, what movement trays are, and secondly, how do I prep them, and how do I sort of turn them into trays that you'd actually use on a tabletop. I will say, I'm not necessarily looking to use them in the game. I think I will probably still use the individual bases, individual figures, without the movement trays, but when I'm storing them, really easy. If I need to deploy a squad, I just take the movement tray out of the box, put it on the table next to where I want to deploy, take the figures out, deploy them, movement tray away. It's so simple for cleaning up after your game and deploying in before your game. So for me, movement trays are more about storage than they are and organisation. I can organise them into squads, or sections, and little units, and then for me visually it makes it easier rather than looking at hundreds of figures just thrown together in a box. So and also I suppose it protects the base a little bit when it's maybe moving in a tray or a box, who knows, but that's my reason. So let's go through what I do. So originally I take the MDF base And what I do to start off with is I take some PVA glue. You can water it down a little bit, doesn't matter. And I, with a paintbrush, paint it on the tops. Now what I do is I avoid the holes themselves. Try not to get any on the inside, because obviously then when you take your penny and put it in, it is a snug fit. It is a snug fit, as you can see. Hopefully there's very little gap, so if you get any sand or grit in there, it will make it very difficult for the figure to sit flush on the in the movement tray. Okay, so it's really important you don't get any sand on the insides of these. If you do, it's not a problem. Take a simple hobby knife, just run it around the inside of that just to get any sand and grit out of there. I also like to clean up the edges as well. I don't like any grit around on the outside edge. If you do, that's your thing, that's fine, no problems, but I like to keep it just on the top. So that's what I do first of all. And once I've done that, I actually stick it to a bottle lid, and then I screw it onto a bottle so I can hold it away from my hand when I'm spraying it with my primer. Just a helpful hint. You might have other ways of doing it. It's up to you, really. Okay, in previous videos I've used medicine bottles. Those are also really good ideas as well. Bits of dowel, whatever you use, alright. And then I've sprayed it with a grey primer. You could use black primer or white primer, whatever primer you used, really doesn't matter. Okay, I've been getting these at the pound store, a can of spray paint, really nice and cheap. So spray it grey, and I spray the sides as well. Then what I do after that, once it's dry, I will take whatever colour that I'm using for my earth colour, which I will put onto the base of my figures, exactly the same colours I use on the bases for the figures. I then will paint the base that colour all the way inside, all the holes, and around the inside of the holes, because if you think about it, when you take the figure out, you don't want to see grey primer or black primer or whatever. It would look good if it just blends in, and here is an example of that. Okay, that brown there just is the same as on the top and on the sides. So I've done that with the brown. Then, as you would with any base that you've put sand or texture on, take a brush. I tend to take a flat one, a little bit wider than a normal paintbrush, and then just dry brush on a lighter colour. And I don't know if you can pick it up on there, but some of the stones there and some of the sand, you can just see it's looking a little bit brighter there, and that's where I put the dry brush on. After the dry brush, then you put your basic materials on, your tufts. Try not to have anything inside the holes, because again it will get in the way of your figures going in. But once you've done that, your figure will sit in there nicely. And if you base the figure the same way you base the movement tray, or vice versa, they'll tie in really nicely. And so, in fact, actually that's not the one for that. Nope. Let's see. That one goes in there very nicely. That one goes there. By the way, if you use American pennies, they fit in here. There's a little bit more of a gap, but they fit just the same. And there we go. There you have it. You can't really see it too much. They look like they're part of the movement tray, and you get a casualty. You take it out. You replace it with, maybe if you've got it, a casualty figure, and it's as simple as that. Okay, so that's movement trays, guys. Really simple, works really well. What I'll do, once I've got some of these movement trays, once I've finished the big movement trays, I will get those up onto my Facebook page with some pictures of the troops in, maybe some casualties as well, and hopefully you'll enjoy those. I'll put a link also up for the War Bases page. Check them out. They're at most UK shows. I think they were even just at Crisis just a week ago. So yeah, or 2 weeks, whatever it was. So check them out. Really good company. And there's other companies out there as well, to be honest. Okay, so that's movement trays. Hopefully, I'll probably add this to the Bolt Action Basics list anyway. Why not? I haven't done that in a while. And we'll see you very soon in another video. Obviously, if you've liked this, please like, do the usual, subscribe if you like these videos, and any comments always appreciated. It's always good to hear from you guys. So until then, take care.